Picture this a beautiful spring day, the kind, crisp air sunshine, birds chirping.
Hmm.
And we're in a charming small town and nestled right there amidst these gorgeous apple orchards, the Columbia River flowing nearby. It's Apple Blossom Parade Day. Everyone's excited. The whole community's coming together to celebrate life. But there's this chilling absence. A young woman, 17-year-old McKenzie Cowell, has vanished, and it casts a shadow over the entire town.
Yeah, it's one of those stories, it just sends shivers down your spine. One minute you have this vibrant young life full of potential, and the next it's just gone. Vanished without a trace. And so many unanswered questions. This is exactly the kind of case we're going to dive into today. Mackenzie's case, it seemed straightforward at first, small town, maybe a runaway case, but it quickly became this tangled web of conflicting stories and strange characters, and a suspect you would never expect in a town like this.
Right. And it wasn't just the disappearance that was so strange, it was the little details that started to emerge. See, Mackenzie was last seen leaving her beauty school, the Academy of Hair Design, middle of the day. And her car was found abandoned a few miles from her home up this desolate road called Pitcher Canyon. But here's the thing. Her purse was still in the car.
Yeah, that detail. That's a big red flag for investigators right there. It's not like she just ran off, you know? It points to something much darker, something much more sinister.
Absolutely. And as the investigation went on, things just got stranger and stranger. At first, they focused on Mackenzie's boyfriend, Joaquin Visano, especially after he failed a lie detector test when asked about what happened.
But lie detectors, they're not perfect.
Right, there's so many things that can affect the results. Stress, anxiety. And as they dug deeper into the case, Joaquin was actually cleared. He had a solid alibi. He wasn't anywhere near where Mackenzie disappeared. So if it wasn't the boyfriend, then who was it? That's when things took a really bizarre turn. This police informant, Liz Reed, struggling with drug addiction, came forward, and she claimed to have seen a snuff film of Mackenzie's murder.
Oh, wow. Liz's story was shocking, to say the least. She pointed the finger at these two small-time drug dealers. She knew Sam Quavis and Emmanuel Buda Saros, according to her. They mistook Mackenzie for someone else, someone involved in the drug trade. A tragic case of mistaken identity.
It's hard to even imagine something like that happening. And the police, of course, they jumped on this new lead. They spent months investigating Liz's claims,
But they found nothing. No evidence to back up her story. No video, no witnesses, nothing. And the more they looked into Liz's past, the more inconsistencies they found in her statements. Her credibility was basically shot.
So we have a boyfriend who's been cleared,
Mm.
and an informant whose story's falling apart. Where do they go from here?
Well, this is where things take another turn. The focus shifted to one of Mackenzie's classmates from beauty school, Christopher Wilson. He was described as eccentric artsy, with an interest in the darker side of things. I mean, we're talking tattoos of Hannibal Lecter and a part-time job at a funeral home.
Definitely not your typical small-town kid.
Hey.
So did his interest in the macabre translate into something more sinister?
That became the million-dollar question, and the police uncovered something that seemed to connect Chris directly to the crime. His YSTR DNA was found on a piece of duct tape near Mackenzie's body, and YSTR DNA is pretty specific. It's passed down through the male line, so it's a strong link.
We've got a DNA connection, but is it enough? Chris's mother and best friend were adamant that he was a good kid, just a little different.
Exactly. And public opinion was split right down the middle. Was Chris just a misunderstood artist? Or was there something darker hiding beneath the surface? The prosecution, they latched onto his dark interests, suggesting he might have been inspired by that show Dexter. You know, the one about the serial killer who cleans up his crime scenes meticulously?
And then came another bombshell. Investigators found traces of Mackenzie's blood in Chris's apartment.
Yeah, that blood evidence. That seemed like a huge win for the prosecution. It put Mackenzie at the scene and solidified the link between Chris and the crime. But the defense argued that the blood could have been planted. It was going to be a tough fight to prove that, though.
So we're moving towards a trial, and the evidence against Chris, especially the DNA and the blood, it's looking pretty bad.
It did. But there was still a big question. Could the prosecution prove that Chris was actually in his apartment when Mackenzie's blood got there? That missing piece could make or break the case.
And then just when you think things couldn't get any more complicated, Liz Reed, our unreliable informant, throws another curveball. She takes back her original story and now claims that Mackenzie was actually murdered at this secluded bluff, not at Chris's apartment. She even presented a ring as proof, said it was taken from Mackenzie during the murder.
Oh boy, Liz's new story just added to the confusion. The police investigated her claims but ultimately dismissed them. The ring wasn't Mackenzie's. And they confirmed again that Quavis and Saros, the drug dealers, had nothing to do with it. Liz's credibility was completely shattered.
So we're headed to trial, and the evidence against Chris is piling up. But is it enough to convict him?
Well, that's what we're going to find out. Stay tuned because this case, it just keeps getting more and more intriguing.
It was a tense time. The whole town was waiting to see what would happen in this trial. The evidence was strong, but it was mostly circumstantial, and people were divided. Some thought Chris was innocent, just an artsy kid who was misunderstood. Others thought he was a cold-blooded killer hiding in plain sight.
Right. And in the middle of all this, the prosecution felt confident in their case. So they offered Chris a plea deal, 6.5 years for manslaughter.
It was a big gamble. Take the deal and admit to something he said he didn't do, or go to trial and risk getting a much longer sentence.
Yeah. A tough choice for sure. And Chris, he maintained his innocence. He said he didn't do it, so he rejected the deal. He was ready to fight for his freedom. He wanted to trust the system. But then during jury selection, things took another turn.
What happened?
Well, Chris's defense team started to realize something. The potential jurors, a lot of them, they already seemed to think Chris was guilty. Just from all the news coverage and the shocking nature of the case, it was going to be almost impossible to find an impartial jury in Wenatchee.
Yeah.
You know, a small town where everyone is talking about this case.
So the trial's about to start. Everyone's on edge.
Yep.
And then, bam, the DA offers another plea deal.
They did. This time it was 14 years for manslaughter. Still a lot of time, but less than what he might get if convicted of murder. The prosecution knew their case wasn't perfect. They were willing to compromise. And for Chris, it was another agonizing decision.
I can't even imagine. What do you do in that situation? Admit to something you say you didn't do, or risk spending even more years in prison?
Exactly. A real no-win situation. And in the end, Chris, facing the possibility of a much harsher sentence, he accepted the deal.
Wow, what a moment that must have been in the courtroom.
It was. His supporters were crushed. His critics felt vindicated. And for McKenzie's family, it wasn't true justice, but at least offered some closure. But that question of what really happened, it still lingered.
And that's not even the end of the story, right? Because less than a year later, Chris filed a motion to withdraw his plea. He said he was pressured into confessing and that he didn't fully understand what he was doing.
Oh, wow. So now we're talking about the whole plea bargain system, the pressure it puts on defendants, and the chance that innocent people might feel forced to plead guilty even if they aren't. This case adds a whole other layer of complexity to an already complex situation.
This case started back in 2010, and it's still going on. It's incredible how much attention it's gotten and how many twists and turns there have been.
It really shows how powerful these cases can be and how long the search for truth and justice can take. And in the middle of it all, we have to remember that real people are affected. A young woman lost her life, and the people who loved her are still looking for answers.
And then finally, in December of 2023, Chris Wilson was released from prison.
It was a long time coming. But the reasons for his release, they're not entirely clear. We don't know for sure if his motion to withdraw the plea was successful or if there were other factors involved. But after more than a decade in the legal system, Chris Wilson was finally free.
So does that mean he's innocent? Did he finally get justice?
Well, the answer isn't that straightforward.
So Chris is out of prison, but did he admit to what happened, or is he still saying he's innocent?
He never changed his story. In fact, right after he got out, Chris did an interview and said he had absolutely nothing to do with McKenzie's death. He even said he never even spoke to her, let alone hurt her. He's sticking to his claim that he only confessed because he was scared. He didn't want to risk spending his whole life in prison.
It's hard to believe that after all this time, we still don't know what really happened. Did the investigation miss something? Could there have been someone else involved? And what about Liz Reed? Why did she lie? Was she being used by someone? Or was she just trying to cause trouble?
It's frustrating, right? Those are the questions that just keep coming up. We can guess all we want, but we might never know for sure. What's clear is that Liz's lies, they really messed up the investigation. They wasted time and resources and created a lot of confusion that probably hid some important details. It just goes to show how much damage an unreliable witness can do.
And what about all that physical evidence? The DNA on the duct tape McKenzie's blood in Chris's apartment. If he's really innocent, how do you explain that?
That's the big question, isn't it? The defense's argument was that the evidence was planted, maybe by the police. They were under a lot of pressure to solve the case and give the community some peace of mind. They even brought up some old scandals in Wenatchee, like those wrongful convictions in the child sex abuse cases back in the 90s. They said it shows that the justice system in Wenatchee has a history of making mistakes.
So are you saying there could have been a cover-up? That they framed an innocent man?
Well, it's a serious accusation. And of course, the police deny it completely. They say they followed all the rules when they collected and analyzed the evidence, and that the evidence clearly shows Chris was involved in the crime.
This whole case, it's like trying to put together a puzzle with missing pieces. We get these glimpses of the truth, but the full picture, it's still out there. It really makes you wonder, what would make someone confess to something they didn't do? Was it the pressure of the trial? The fear of a long sentence? Or maybe something even deeper?
Psychologists and legal experts have been trying to figure that out for years. False confessions. They happen even though they're rare. In cases like this, they expose the cracks in our justice system. The idea that an innocent person could get caught up in all of this and end up confessing to something they didn't do. It's terrifying.
McKenzie Cowell's story. It's a tragedy, a young life cut short. In this case, it makes us think about how fragile life is and how hard it can be to find justice. And it leaves us with so many questions. We've talked about the investigation, the different stories, the evidence, and all the doubts. But maybe the most important question is, did justice prevail?
This deep dive, it's really made us think about what truth is, what evidence is, and what justice really means. It reminds us that things aren't always so simple. Sometimes, even when there's a conviction or a confession, the truth is still hidden. We have to think about how we decide what to believe, how we determine guilt or innocence, and how we deal with the possibility that even with the best intentions, the system can sometimes get it wrong.
What do you think about this whole case? We've laid it all out. The facts, the complexities, the mysteries. It's your turn to decide what you believe, to think about the possibilities and come to your own conclusions. We want to hear your thoughts. Share them with us on social media. And don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into stories that make us question what we think, spark our curiosity, and remind us that the search for truth never really ends. So until next time, keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and keep your minds open.